like I was always getting into trouble when I was 4 years old. I guess it may have been because I was always inquisitive and sometimes very bored. I am an only child and was raised by my grandparents who adopted me, and I call them Mom and Dad. I was always trying to find things to keep myself occupied. I enjoyed romping with our dogs, pulling the cat's tail, and poking my fingers into our cockatiel's birdcage, only to have him peck my fingers while I screamed bloody murder to the tip-top of my lungs. Our bird's name was DJ, and no matter how many times my mom scolded me for poking my fingers into the birdcage, I just couldn't resist. It was so tempting, even though I knew DJ was going to chirp loudly, while his beak took stabbing pokes at my already sore fingers. Oh, DJ wasn't just any old cockatiel, but he was very smart. He knew several words that Mom and Dad taught him, and some he even picked up on his own. He even learned the words, "Help, help," as he picked that up each time I would poke my fingers into the cage and scream the same words. Whenever he would get upset, he would ring the bells loudly, over and over, as if warning whatever was approaching him to keep away. The cage was DJ's safe and protected home. We had a cat named Miss Kitty, who would sometimes try to approach the cage to see how close she could get to DJ. But DJ sensed whenever Miss Kitty was around, and immediately DJ would start ringing the bell. This would frighten Miss Kitty so much that she would quickly run out of the room and not to attempt to venture back in for several days. One day, when all was very quiet, and Mom thought I was still sleeping, I slid quietly out of my comfortable bed and tiptoed into our living room. Everything was dark as it was still not yet morning. I could barely see the big bird cage in the corner of the living room. It was about 3 feet tall with white enclosed cage bars to make sure DJ could not get out. It was already crowded with DJ's snack tray, feeding dish, water pan, and gravel bowl, perch, and 2 bowls hanging from the top of the inside of the cage. I would often look at DJ wondering what it was like to be a bird and live inside that cage. Many times I had watched my mom and dad open the latch door to change out the feeding dish or add a treat. Carefully I placed my small fingers upon the cage latch and lifted it. Oh so cautiously, being careful not to disturb DJ and especially my mom and dad who were sounding peacefully. For some unknown reason, something coaxed me into that cage. As soon as I opened the door, I was practically nudged inside. Before I realized it, I had my entire body in DJ's cage. The next thing I remember was DJ screeching, "Help, help," while flying all over the bird cage. In addition to his ringing the bells, which echoed in my ears, I tried desperately to get out of the bird cage, but found myself wedged in with a little room for both of us, especially with his flying wildly about. Since it was still dark in the living room, I could not even see how to get out of that cage, and I started crying loudly and screaming at the top of my lungs. What a sight that must have been. Mom and Dad, who had been asleep upstairs, came running down suspecting a burglar. Quickly, they turned out the living room light and turned their heads to the corner of the living room where all the ruckus was, only to see me and the bird wildly flinging around inside of the cage, with both of us screaming, "Help, help!" Somehow they managed to unwedge me and pull me out safely. After that, I no longer wondered what it was like to live in a bird cage, as I realized it was not a good home for a 4-year-old.